Welcome to the first workshop of the Ambition Emotion program this spring semester 2020. I'm so excited to have you all here, so excited to get started, so excited for you to begin the endeavor of connecting with a mentor and learning about what you want to do professionally and then getting your foot in the door with professional opportunities. This workshop and this program in general is going to help you get to where you want to be as a young professional into your career. So the timeline of the program works like this. February 11th was the cutoff date to get started. So you're already in, you've taken the first step. That's amazing. That's fantastic. This is the first workshop. So it's February 16th, 17th, and 18th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. If you're anywhere in between, that's when it is. And essentially for these workshops, I'm expecting you to watch this either live at 8 p.m., right when it goes live, or within the next 24 hours, and then post your comments to the questions that I have for you during the workshop. I will state those questions during the workshop when I'm doing our interviews with our interviewees or guests for the evening. But more importantly, I want to know that you're engaged, that you're participating with this, because we've got a lot of great content for you. So our first workshop, that's tonight, the 16th, the 17th, and the 18th. And then our second workshops on March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our first call complete with your mentor is expected to happen by March 10th. So when you're meeting with your mentor, when you're looking at, okay, what date should I have my first meeting by? March 10th is the date that you should hopefully have had that first call set and done by. Now, when you get introduced to your mentor on Wednesday, the 19th, you should reach out immediately. You should start the conversation immediately. You should not delay. I don't care what's going on in your world. I don't care if you're waiting for a career fair to happen. I don't care if you're waiting for some job interview to happen or you're waiting to hear back from some company. Get started. These mentors are here to help you. The more you delay getting opportunities with your mentor. So get started. March 22nd, 23rd, and 24th will be when Workshop 3 will happen. That will also be at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then March 28th is when you should have your second call completed by. April 12th, 13th, and 14th is when our final fourth workshop of the semester will be completed. Those are also at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then you should have your third call with your mentor on April 20th. Now, you can have more calls with your mentor. Actually, it's highly encouraged. But for successful completion of this program, for the way that we define it, have 3 conversations, at least 3 conversations. And those are just the general guidelines for when we believe that you should have those conversations by. So in late April, we will send a post-program assessment, which will allow us to capture your feedback on the program, on the experience itself. And that's essentially it. That's the program for the semester. I'm really excited to begin working with you. I'm really excited to get started. So this workshop is going to be roughly an hour long. So please post your questions in the comments area, and we will work on answering them as soon as you post them. Try to give us at least 48 hours, and you'll be notified, especially if you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, you'll be notified anytime that we respond to your comments in the YouTube channel. So anytime that you post a question, anytime you make a comment, we'll know, we'll see it. But especially questions, we will do our best to answer those as they come up. And by the way, you can ask questions both to myself or to our guests for the evening. You're more than welcome to ask both, and we will try to get our guests to answer those questions. And at minimum, if we can't get our guest to answer him or herself, we will ask our guests those questions and get their answer via email on our own and then respond to that in the comments section. So during this workshop, we're going to cover how to achieve success in this program, how to expand your network and begin having conversations with people that you want to surround yourself with, and how you can begin working towards a goal with your mentor. This specific workshop's all about how do I get my foot in the door with opportunities. This could be an opportunity for a job or an internship. It could be an opportunity to get mentored by somebody, to be an apprentice. It could be an opportunity just to learn from somebody else, to start setting up informational interviews and just building your network. Either way, this is about getting your foot in the door, because networking is not a transaction. It's not about, hey, I'm reaching out to you so that you can get me this. Like, don't get me wrong. Your end goal could be to ultimately land an internship, and that absolutely can happen, but that is not how it goes about. That's not how you go about doing it. You have to build a relationship. You have to build trust with somebody. You have to build a rapport with somebody. And you know what? It might come about. They might say, hey, my company's actually looking to hire somebody, or I know this person that you should connect with, and they make an introduction, and that leads to the next opportunity. You never know how this is going to work out, but the key is that you're not expecting it from the relationship. You're coming in grateful for whatever opportunity that can come about from this relationship with your mentor, and you make the most out of it. But I just want to say that our goal is about how do we get your foot in the door, how can we help you effectively make those relationships happen and get the ball rolling for you. So to get credit for attendance during this workshop, I'll be asking you 3 questions throughout the workshop for you to answer, and post your answers to these questions in the comment sections within 24 hours of this video going live. So if you're watching the Sunday night episode of this workshop, I'll expect you to have your comments made, your answers to the questions that we post by 8 p.m. on Monday. If you're watching the Monday night version, I'll expect your answers to be posted by 8 p.m. on Tuesday. And if you're watching the Tuesday version of this workshop, I'm expecting your answers to be posted by Wednesday at 8 p.m. After that, you will not get credit. Now, I'm not looking for a comment like, hey, my name is John Doe, I'm just checking in. That won't get you credit. I'm going to ask you specific questions during the workshop that I'm going to point out and say, hey, post your answer to this question below in the comment section. That's how I know that you will be watching, paying attention, and are engaged in the workshop. So I want to set proper expectations. This program will not guarantee you an internship. It will not guarantee you a job, getting promoted faster than your peers. Having that mindset will not lead to proper results. This is not a program that hands things on a silver platter. These are for students. This program is for students that want to take their career path and their career into the next level, to their college experience to the next level, because that's absolutely what this program can do for you. If you think like, hey, I'm going to sit back, do the bare bones minimum, not really like apply myself, you know, you're going to get the outcome that you put into it. But if you really apply yourself, you absolutely can get the outcomes that you want. I mean, I like to think about it as the law of attraction. If you come in expecting negativity, you will get negativity. If you're open to the positive, you will achieve positive outcomes. You will attract positivity to what you want to achieve. So I really want to encourage you to come in with an open mind and a positive outlook for what you can achieve, and the willingness to work hard towards getting there. Students who have gone through this program have landed jobs at places like Google and other Silicon Valley companies, Wall Street investment banks, prestigious PR and marketing firms, and major engineering firms. Absolutely, yes, that has happened many times for many students. But did those outcomes get handed to them on a silver platter? Absolutely not. It's all about what you put into this program and the outcomes that you can achieve. They absolutely are there. They are absolutely possible. You have no idea how this can come about and help you out in terms of your mentor. Treat this program as fuel to help you get to where you want to be. If you're already burning and going strong, this program can really help you accelerate. Imagine just like getting dumped a bunch of gasoline on your big fire that you're already building. If you're burning barely at an ember, let this program be a sliding point, a starting point for you to launch off. But if you think and you come in with the mentality that, hey, I'm kind of doing a couple things, but I'm kind of following the status quo of like, I just go to the annual career fairs and I apply on the online website and that's pretty much it. If you're coming in with that mentality and that you're not going to try to or be willing to open up and apply and do other things to help you get your foot in the door, this program you may struggle with, because we're going to teach you a lot of things and a lot of ways that you can go about getting your foot in the door and getting opportunities for yourself that are not the normal way. That's why this program is for the students that are really interested in taking their life, their career to the next level, because these are the tips that you are not taught in school, and the experts that we bring in, the guests that we bring in to these workshops have content, insight, and wisdom that they've utilized and explained within their books, within articles, within other pieces of content they've created that they've built an expertise on. And so the point all I'm making is that this program, if you're interested in taking your life, your career, your college experience to the next level, you are in the right place. So I'm really excited to get started. Now, a couple of keynotes about mentorship. Now, when it comes to your mentor and who you were matched with, one thing that we leverage extensively is this research called work orientation, which is how you view your work. So some people view their work as a job, some people view their work as a career, some people view their work as a calling. Imagine a triangle and imagine it being a spectrum that can change throughout your life. So after you take your assessment and after you get matched with your mentor and you log into your dashboard, you can actually see your work orientation and your paired mentor's work orientation, which is really cool. Because what we've learned is when work orientation is aligned for a mentoring relationship, the likelihood that that relationship lasts for the full 6 months is considered both productive and quality by both participants increases by 400%. It's crazy how powerful work orientation is when it comes to mentor matching. If we were just to match you based on your career interest or their status within their company or their area of expertise, we know that those are only transactional metrics, and the likelihood that that relationship will last for the full 6 months and be considered both productive and quality is low, because then there's an expectation that someone's going to give you something or that you're going to give them something, and that's ultimately not how successful mentorship works. Successful mentorship works when both people can, on a human level, invest in each other, and that's how we make the matches happen. The other key thing about mentorship is vulnerability. the willingness to open up about who you are and what you want to accomplish in your story. I know that when you are more vulnerable, you are much more likely to build trust. You cannot build trust unless you've got vulnerability first. And it's up to you or your mentor to be the first person to take that step. So I want to challenge you to be the first person to take that step, to be vulnerable first. And to give you an idea of what vulnerability looks like, I will share with you my story. Now, I'm passionate about mentorship. I'm passionate about mentorship because I needed mentors in my life. From age 15 to age 19, I was a drug dealer. And at the end of my freshman year at Indiana University, I got arrested in an undercover operation by the Indiana University Police Department. And I got 5 felony distribution charges. I was expelled from school, and I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. And I mean, that hit me like a brick wall. I mean, up to that point in time in life, I thought success was you go to school, you get good grades, you get a job, and then somewhere along those lines, you find yourself, like as if it were puberty, it would just come to me. But that's not how life works. And I had to learn that the hard way. Because no one who I had known, no one who I had ever known that I ever thought was successful ever was a drug dealer. And so I had to accept either being a total failure or redefine my definition of success. And so I chose the latter. So I ended up enrolling in a program in St. George, Utah, to help me turn my life around. And that's where I really got exposed to the power of mentorship, both on a personal level and a professional level. On a personal level, really having personal mentors, people that are there for you, are so powerful. I don't want to ever discredit that, because I feel like sometimes when we're here, we're thinking about our professional outcomes, we don't realize how valuable mentors can be on our personal level and really what they can do for us. Because if they help you open your mind to what you can accomplish in your career, or what you can accomplish as a person, and in who you can emulate your life after, they can really show you something that you didn't actually even believe in yourself that you could accomplish. And I think that's so powerful, and that's really what they did for me. But on a professional level, they helped me really come to the grips with the fact that when you Google search my name when I was 19 years old, the first thing you saw was IUPD does drug sweeps for 8. And I'm one of the 8. I mean, there could not have been a bigger red X across my name when applying for any role. I mean, could you imagine that? Literally, any role I would apply for, I would have showed up with a big red flag. That is bad. So about a month after living in Utah, I flew back to Chicago. That's where my family's from, for the weekend, to let them know my life's getting on track. On that flight, I'm sitting next to a guy. We start talking. He starts sharing with me about his life. I start sharing with him about my life. We hit it off. I take a keen interest in him. I'm actively listening. I'm sharing. I'm really trying to put myself into his shoes, and I'm really, most importantly, actively listening. I'm taking down notes. I'm following up on the things that he has to say. I'm really digging into his world, because he loves to talk about himself, and I'm really playing into that. Well, it turns out he's the director of ground equipment for SkyWest Airlines. And by the time that plane lands, he offers me an internship on the spot doing financial analysis for SkyWest Airlines. Boom. Like right on the spot. What an amazing experience. I mean, he took me under his wing. He didn't care about my background. He didn't care about what I had gone through or where I was going, or the fact that I may even go to prison sometime in the next year. He took me under his wing and gave me a shot. And that was huge. And that's really where the whole idea for Ambition in Motion came from, was like the fact that opportunities could come out of the blue, that they didn't come from just applying on a website and people putting your resume in a background check system, and that, you know, maybe you get spit out with this opportunity. I learned that opportunities could come from just putting myself out there, being vulnerable, and taking a keen interest in somebody else and actively listening to them. And so I think that's such an important story to share with you, because it shows, I mean, my vulnerability, but 2, it shows that opportunities can come from a wide array of places, and it doesn't matter where you're coming from, it matters where you're going. And if you believe that you can achieve what you want to achieve, you absolutely can achieve it, but you have to put in the work to go and get there, and you have to be willing to be vulnerable with people. Don't hold all your failures, your mistakes close to the chest because you think people will judge you. Put them out into the world, because ultimately people will give you opportunities, and they will believe in you if you let them. So that's something that's extremely important and extremely helpful for this workshop that I really wanted to share with you. So now that I've shared my story with you, I am excited for you to embark on your mentor relationship, and I hope that me being vulnerable with you maybe it inspired you to be vulnerable with your mentor. Hopefully it gave you the confidence to be comfortable with your mentor. And at minimum, hopefully it just gave you the confidence to be comfortable with yourself and who you are and where you want to be and where you're going. Now, for this mentor program, there are 3 keys to success in this program. That is honing your strategy, your story, and your state. Now, I said those in reverse order of importance. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit about why each one of these are so important in terms of being successful in this program. In terms of your story, in terms of your state is your physical being, your physiology. Like, how are you physically right now? Are you like in a peak state? Are you ready to go? Are you jumped up, pumped up, ready to jam? Are you coming into this mentor meeting like, man, I'm about to take on the world and I'm ready to go. I'm excited. I'm amped up. Or are you hunched over? Are you in a bad body language, bad posture, in a bad mood? Something bad happened during the day. You're tired, exhausted, stressed out, whatever. If you're coming in with a negative state, I can promise you're going to have a bad relationship. Your first impression is everything. Your first impression is everything. If you come in a negative attitude because you've had a bad day, I can promise you the relationship is not going to get off to where you want it to be. But if you come in with high energy, you come in like, hey, I'm pumped, I'm excited to learn from you, I'm excited to learn your story, I'm excited to ask you questions, I'm excited to share knowledge with you and have you ask me questions, I'm excited for this relationship to begin. If you come in with that mentality, you will have a great and positive first impression. Now, there's a couple ways that you can go about doing this. One way, and my favorite way to go about getting yourself into a peak state physiologically, is to get up, shake it loose, and yell at the top of your lungs. I know it sounds crazy to do something like this, but I want you to do it right now while you're watching this video. I don't care if you're in your dorm room. I don't care if you're in your house. I don't care where you're at. I want you to stand up, and I want you to shake it loose. I want you to shimmy. I want you to let it go. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just go, yeah! Just let it loose. Let it out. Let it go. Because here's the thing, when you do this, you're releasing endorphins in your brain that make you feel excited, that make you feel energized, that make you feel good, that make you feel confident, that make you feel like I am here and ready to take on the world. And when you do this, you get yourself into a state ready to be in a good mood, to leave a good impression. So I don't care what's going on with your world. If you get yourself into a state physiologically conducive to being successful, get your body language on point, you are going to be successful. Promises on that. The next key is your story. So what is the story that you tell yourself? If you tell yourself a story like, oh man, I'm an introvert, so I couldn't possibly be good at networking, or I couldn't possibly be good at socializing or being around other people. Or if you tell yourself, I'm an extrovert, I'm crazy around people, I can't even handle it right now, I'm nuts. I can't even contain myself when I'm around people. I'm just like a blabbermouth. I have word vomit. I just let things fly like crazy. If you tell yourself these stories for why you will or won't be successful, that will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So back to what I was talking about when I said the law of attraction. If you believe that you can be good at something, you will be good at something. I promise you that. But the key is you have to believe it. And the second thing is you have to practice it, because networking is a skill, like shooting a basketball or knitting a quilt. The more you practice, the better you get. So if you think, oh man, I'm an introvert or I'm an extrovert, which makes me bad at networking, you're not going to practice networking, which is going to reinforce you being bad at networking. But if you work at it, if you practice, if you use this mentor program to meet with your mentor, someone who's got like of no consequence to you, like if you, God forbid, mess up this relationship with your mentor, what is the worst that happens? This was a total stranger that you've never met before this moment. Now all of a sudden you're building this relationship. Well, why not give it a shot? Because here's the thing. If it ends up working out great, it gives you the confidence to start reaching out to more people and building a better rapport with more people and building your network. And then all of a sudden you can become better at networking. You can be better at building relationships with other people. And you can be better at learning opportunities when they arise and getting your foot in the door. So the point I'm making here is, what is the story you tell yourself? What is the thing that you've got in your mind for why you will or will not be successful? And the key here is that if you do have something positive in your mind, I promise you, you are going to be much more likely to manifest that outcome for yourself. And the last key is the strategy. So what are the strategies that you are going to leverage to help you getting your foot in the door for an opportunity? Now, here's something that I like to do. I like to implement new routines every single month, because what it does is it helps me get into powerful habits. Now, some of them stick, some of them don't stick. Some of them take, a while to stick. Some of them take practice, and that's okay. But the key is that you have to start. And so one thing that I would love for you to start doing in terms of a strategy to help you build a strong routine that will help you start getting your foot in the door is if you don't have a LinkedIn profile account, get a LinkedIn profile account. LinkedIn is a powerful tool. It's so powerful. But then once you've gotten a LinkedIn profile account, I want you to connect with 10 new people in your field, not just 10 new friends or whatever. If you're just starting your LinkedIn account, friend request everybody. Get as many as you can. In fact, you should really try to get above 500 plus LinkedIn connections, because once you're there, you are much more in the LinkedIn algorithm likely to get recommended by other people in terms of connecting with them. But more importantly, I want you to connect with 10 new people in your field of interest. So if you want to get into banking, connect with 10 bankers. If you want to get into marketing, connect with 10 marketers. If you want to get into engineering, connect with 10 engineers. Connect with 10 new people every single week. And it's a really easy thing to do. Send them a personalized message. Say, hey, Jane Doe, I'm a student studying XYZ category. I'm really interested in your work, and I'm interested in potentially pursuing a career in this path. I would love to connect and maybe learn a little bit more about your work, your name. It's the simplest message. And in fact, if you go on the tips and templates tab on the AIM dashboard, you can actually see a copy and pasteable link that you can literally copy and paste to help you send this message out to other professionals on LinkedIn. But if you can get into the habit of sending 10 new people a connection request every single week, I promise you are going to start meeting with some of these people, and this could open up doors that maybe weren't even there or you didn't even realize were possible. I strongly encourage that. 70% of all job offers go to somebody who knows somebody at that company, not from just applying blindly on a college career website. I promise you that. 7% of jobs go to someone who knows someone at that company. So if you can build relationships with somebody at that company, your resume will go to the top because you were a referral, not a random stranger who applied. Build your network. So one thing that I love to do, and by the way, we're about to get started into our guest speaker, but one thing that I love to do before, to really reinforce what we're talking about, one thing that we've learned is teaching something to somebody else. So think about something that you've learned within these first few minutes of this workshop so far, or something that you will learn through our guest speaker in this workshop. I want you to think about that, and I want you to teach it to somebody else, something that you learned. And the reason why this is so powerful is because learning something in a workshop is amazing. I mean, sure, I'm on here, I'm on this video, and that's great. That's all. That's amazing. That's fine and dandy. But if you go back to bed, or if you're like, oh, that was cool, I kind of took a note, whatever, like that might stick, but the likelihood that it actually sticks increases exponentially when you teach it to somebody else. So find a friend, find a stranger, find somebody, and teach them something that you learned this evening, and I promise you it will reinforce substantially more in your brain. You are much more likely to adopt the habits that you are learning. You're much more likely to apply the skills that you are gaining. So that is the key thing that I really want to stress with you from this workshop. So I'm really excited to jump into our guest speakers. We've got a great one for you this evening. I'm excited for you to learn from our guest. I am so excited to have Joanna Severino here for our workshop this evening. Joanna, thank you so much for joining me. For the students in the audience out there watching, I'd love to just give a brief intro of Joanna. Joanna is the founder and president of Prep Skills and the U.S. College Expo. Joanna's doing amazing things for students in terms of getting themselves to where they need to be for their careers and their paths, and ultimately getting themselves in the door with opportunities that maybe they didn't realize were there. She's been an educator for over 25 years, and she's helped students achieve major milestones in their life. One of the things that I love about Joanna, and that she wrote in her bio, is that Joanna believes that education is about resourcefulness. I completely agree with her. I think that is so true with anything. I don't think it's a lack of resources. I think it's a lack of resourcefulness. And if you can ultimately get yourself into the position to make the most out of any circumstance, you can get where you want to be. I love that that's something that Joanna believes in. And she wants to ensure that students can connect with opportunities to propel them into their careers. So without further ado, Joanna, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Garrett. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, Joanna, this workshop is all about getting your foot in the door. So I'd love if you could just share with me maybe a story about maybe your first higher ed experience, or getting your foot in the door for your first higher ed experience, or professional experience for that matter, or both.
Sure. So I went to the University of Toronto, and it was interesting because the year that I entered the university, there were some rules around what would classify as qualification for the Bachelor of Commerce degree. And so I was a busybody doing a lot of things around the school and being involved with a lot of activities. And so really felt like I had my foot in the door just because I had high academic standings. And, you know, I was basically a shoo-in, so I thought. And when I went through the process, in that year, I wanted to take first year calculus before entering the university. Thought I'd get a head start and get that out of the way. And so when I went through that process, I discovered that the individual at the university had indicated that I wouldn't be accepted. And I thought, what? And so she went on to explain, and she said, you know, 3 of the courses that you took were a part of the business credit courses, and so we only can classify 2 of those, not 3 in that same category. And one of the courses was economics, which was considered a social science, not a business. Long story short, I had to really turn a no into a yes, and started kicking some doors down at the university and at my high school with the principal and guidance department and all of that. And through that process, then they actually changed their rules, because economics can be a business course, it can be a social science. And so, you know, I received an elaborate letter from the university expressing their apology, and certainly I was admitted, and they changed their rules. But imagine how many students were not accepted and didn't push that extra conversation to discover, you know, why that is, and turning a no into a yes. So that's what I did. And so that was a great experience, I think, for me to build that resilience.
You completely downplay this. Like, you make it seem like casually, like how you changed an entire university's protocol. That is, I just because I've worked with universities and I've seen big organizations where there's a lot of boards, there's a lot of things that have to be proposed and approved. That was no small feat. So I think that you are very much downplaying what you had to do to make that change happen. But it makes me think, and I want to ask the students a question here. So students, this is a question I want to ask for you. Please post your answer in the comments below. When is a time that you face some adversity, whether that be with your education, whether that be with your career, with anything that you've been working towards? When have you faced adversity? How did you overcome it? I'd love to learn a little bit about that story. Post it in the comments. In the comment section. I'd love to learn about your story of how you faced adversity, because I think what's so powerful about stories of adversity, just like hearing Joanna's story here, was the fact that it makes you relatable. It's so crazy. It's almost like when, and this might, Joanna, this might sound very catty of me to say, but I feel like sometimes when I hear from somebody that I believe is like really killing it, doing an amazing job, like really doing some awesome things, and then they tell me like other things that they failed at or things that they've like made mistakes in, I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you for sharing that with me. I now don't feel like I'm the only one. You know, I feel like you're relatable, you're a human, and that I'm doing something, I'm all right, I'm on a fine track. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you got it. I mean, everything we experience is really setting us up for future experiences, right? And it's when we learn from those experiences and we push through them that we grow, right? And so we have a choice. Are we going to grow through the circumstance, or are we going to retreat and do the woe is me kind of scenario? I choose to grow. Yeah,
no, that's awesome. I love that. And that's, gosh, you know, that's so interesting. I think, yeah, that if you can choose to handle a difficult circumstance, and earlier in this workshop, I shared my personal story of where I was in my past and kind of how I got here today. So that those moments of adversity are really critical. I'm so glad that we're having students share their own. And I'm so glad that other students can see their peers and other people that sharing their adversity, because I think that vulnerability is one of the most crucial elements to building a strong mentor relationship with anybody, because that builds trust. But yeah, that's awesome. So Joanna, I'd love to learn, are there other times that you've struggled or had to face adversity that, really, I guess maybe kind of going back to your story, because you did a really great job of kind of answering that question. What did you specifically do to change the mind of the university to accept you and change their policies? Like, you kind of like said, hey, I had to take some metrics, I had to reach out to the dean, like all those things. What was that exact process like? Was there initially no's? How did you turn them into yeses?
Well, the initial individual who had said, sorry, but you're not going to be admitted, specifically to the downtown campus. They do have 3 campuses at U of T, but the downtown campus is supposedly the one to get into, right? With the higher rigor, I suppose. And so when the individual indicated that I wouldn't be admitted, I really just didn't take her no, because she didn't have the authority to give me a yes. So why take a no from someone who doesn't have the authority to give you a yes? So quickly just moved on, visited with the principal of the school, the guidance counselor, indicated to them that they should have known this and outlined this, that if the economics course, for example, was considered a business by the university, then they should have been aware of that. And then things started to just sort of move and shake, because at that point, I had actually stayed an extra semester just to support the high school with the yearbook and other activities that I had that I was involved in, because in terms of credits, I had already far exceeded the credits I needed to get in. And so I was spending extra time doing that. Essentially, the principal, the university, I just got involved and just really stated the facts and said, you can't be not admitting me because you've got, economics listed as a business course, when at our school, as per the curriculum, it's a social science. So, and, to be honest, I don't know exactly what happened behind closed doors, besides me pushing the envelope and then an individual really coming to the table. And so I had a lot of great mentors and people that were sort of fighting the battle alongside me. And through that process, we changed the university's policy, which I guess was a bit of a trailblazing situation. And I tend to consider myself that. I consider myself a trailblazer and moving through a lot of circumstances in life and creating things that don't exist. And that's really my joy and passion.
And you are a trailblazer. That's awesome. That's really, really cool, that whole story. So there's a couple things that I think of when I hear this story. One is, I can't tell you how many times I'll talk to a student and he or she will tell me, well, I have to now take an additional semester of college because that class that I thought was going to give me the credit for the thing that I needed to graduate actually ended up not giving me the credit that I ended up needing to graduate. And so they just take an extra semester for face value. What would be the confidence to just say, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to take this additional semester. I'm just going to do I'm just going to, or rather, I'm going to wait it out to get what I know is right. Like, what gave you the confidence to do that? And how do you suggest any students who might be in a similar situation? And by the way, this doesn't necessarily have to be for, a college degree or for anything going on with your schoolwork. This could be for a career. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I look at job postings where it says you must have this GPA to even apply for the role, when we know there's data that backs up that GPA has very little correlation to career achievement.
Well, I think most people will stop, unfortunately. They'll stop right before that door starts to open. It's just easier. It's more comfortable. There could be a lot of reasons why they do that. But if you just push a little further, I mean, the question to ask is, well, what do you want? And for me at that point in time, I was pretty clear that I wanted to be at that university studying a particular degree. And so nothing really was going to shift that. Everything about the circumstance, it wasn't a question of feeling entitled. It was a question of understanding that I had everything that was required to get the yes. And somebody outside of me was making that determination that it should be a no, and I just wasn't going to have it. So pushing through to getting to what you want with a sense of humble confidence, I think, is important. And really, if you're not going to do it, who's going to do it for you? That's the bottom line, right? We sometimes hear about the helicopter. I'm a mother of three boys, but I'm not a helicopter mom. It's just, when they come up to me and they give me scenarios and certain circumstances, I basically say, how are you going to handle that? What are you going to do? Give them some guidance, and they push through. And I think you have to experience it yourself to build that confidence over and over again.
Yeah, I love that. And that's really cool. I think the other thing that I wanted to talk about was the component of the mentors that played a role in your life in this situation. Because obviously this program's all about mentorship, how they can leverage their mentors. I think a big misconception is that I can only go to my mentor when I got positive news to share. When I got this internship, or when I got this promotion, or like, if I don't have a positive news to share, then what's the point of me meeting with my mentor? How you clearly challenged it with this situation. How did you leverage your mentor to help you essentially overcome this circumstance?
Yeah, I mean, you need people outside of yourself to come together and to push through to get to that positive end. And for me, it happened to be, whether it was the principal, the guidance counselor, particular teachers at a senior level, these were mentors for me throughout, and just leveraged their experience and their knowledge with the situation to get to where I needed to go. So that mentorship piece is really important and to also express the vulnerabilities, and to be, I think, direct and honest and transparent and authentic, all of those things, because I wasn't really holding back. I literally marched into the principal's office, had a seat, and said, listen, this is not cool, and listed what had happened. And, immediately he just left the room and went over to the guidance office to sort of start the chatter and get things rolling. But that's really, you need to be your own advocate. And I think that's really important. And later in life, when I was confronted with a personal illness, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma and had cancer, and then required an autologous stem cell transplant. All of that resiliency that I built, and sort of the mentors that supported me along the way, that was the foundation that eventually got me through that life illness as well.
Wow. I love how that you were able to really transition. One, I mean, that's an incredible story, and I really appreciate you sharing that vulnerability with me and with our audience during this workshop. That's really awesome and really, really powerful. I love really, especially what you said about how mentors could help you from a professional level, that being getting to where you wanted to be on a professional side, but then also on the personal side. When you had cancer and your mentors were there for you to help you overcome that, the fact that you felt comfortable reaching out to them in both circumstances, I think, is so critical. And I think that's something that's really important to kind of convey to students that are watching this, or anybody who's watching this, that mentors can help you throughout your life or your career, and that it's not about necessarily, oh, well, what's the most appropriate situation for going to them with XYZ sort of situation. I think at the end of the day, it's like, if they are a trusted advisor, someone that you can go to and rely on, you can go to them for whether it be personal or professional. I love that you kind of shared both aspects of how mentors can really help.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So, and the other thing I also love that you said was the humble confidence component of that. Humble confidence is key. So you didn't complain. You didn't say, hey, this isn't, you didn't go to some outside body and like complain to all your friends that, oh, this is unfair or whatever. You took action. You went to people that actually could make a decision about that. I think that's the other really critical component, is taking, any adversity you got in your own hands and actually taking massive action towards overcoming whatever that situation is.
Right. Well, I believe, you can either have excuses or results, not both. So which one? And leaning towards results, taking action, making a difference, I think, is important. So that's really the type of transferable skills I think that the students should have or think about when they're transitioning, whether it's for personal situations or professional or in their workplace or going through this mentorship program. So what skill set can you build to build on that resiliency?
You know what? I love that. I think that's an appropriate question to ask the students. What is a skill set? By the way, anybody who's watching this in the audience right now, I'd love to learn in the comment section. Please post this now. I think Joanna posed a great question. What is a skill set that you want to really hone in on that will really boost and improve your resiliency? Or what's a skill that you believe that you own, that you are really good at, and that you could become even better at? I mean, I'm a big believer in building out your strengths as opposed to trying to like make all your weaknesses mediocre. What is the strength that you have that you are really, really good at and that you want to continue building at? Post that in the comments below, because I think when you can look at those skills or the things that you've worked really hard at and you've been resilient with, it builds up your own resiliency when you're facing additional and alternative circumstances. So, perfect. Joanna, let's transition a little bit. Your expertise, your area of expertise is in higher education and specifically getting your foot in the door for higher education. So for any students that are in the audience or any people that are in the audience that are considering going about and getting a graduate degree, maybe a master's degree, maybe a PhD, what are the common pitfalls for getting your foot in the door, and what are some of the biggest suggestions that you have that you would advocate for to really making the most of getting your foot in the door?
Well, I mean, getting to a yes, I believe is more of a holistic process, right? And so if you are looking at higher education or a job or anything of that nature, the first place you need to look is inside yourself. And I think you said it well, Garrett. It's like, what are your strengths? What are your passions? And move in that direction. And taking a holistic approach and inventory about who you are. So academically, how are you doing? There may be, you know, if you're thinking of an MBA, there's a standardized test that's usually involved, like the GMAT. And then the personal side, like who are you? What are your passions? And why should they say yes to you? So that portfolio that you're building, the resume, the experience, I think is highly important. And then looking to mentors to be those character references in the end, right? And so any admissions office is going to want to look at you as a person. And so beyond the marks, beyond the standardized tests, you know, who are you? What's your character like? And how does your personality, your passions fit into the program and into that bigger future that you're trying to create? So those are the important aspects that I believe are important when you're thinking about transitioning and looking at this holistically.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good piece of insight. I would be curious because I'm less knowledgeable about this, but I'd love to learn from your perspective. Are there people that we can meet or things that we can do, actions that we can take towards really helping stack our deck? Like, would it be wise for us to reach out to professors at the university that we're interested in attending and really, trying to set up a conversation with them to learn a little bit more about their research background or the things that they are working on specifically? Would that be another helpful area to help get our foot in the door?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think you need to understand what you're getting yourself into. And I think that's an important component. We see this on our end when we're dealing with elementary school students or high school students who are transitioning to private independent schools, prep schools, American universities, that sort of thing. And you do need to reach out to the people on the ground that maybe have the knowledge about a particular area that you're interested in and really give yourself a chance to experience that. That's really critical and important. And so stepping outside of your comfort zone and realizing, okay, is this really for me, right? Is this where I want to be? I have a cousin who decided to be a cardiologist. He went to Australia to get that degree, and in transitioning, eventually cardiology was where he landed and is loving it. But along the way, there were a lot of transitions, And he did look to his mentors. He did look to the professors and the people that he was engaged with for that support to lead him into the direction of where he landed.
So I would love to learn, is there a wrong way to get your foot in the door for an opportunity in higher ed, whether it be for a master's degree or a PhD or like an additional education? Is there a wrong way to going about getting your foot in the door?
I mean, I tend to be, as I said, a trailblazer, a bit of a disruptor. So, I mean, you're always going to have people who don't agree with you, you know, whether it's, you know, if you call somebody 3, 4, 5, 10 times, right? There are those that will say, well, you're being too aggressive, and that won't sit well with them. But knowing your audience is pretty important, but knowing yourself is more important. And so to what degree, whether we take this and we translate it to, you know, getting your foot in the door, getting a job, if you're in business, you know, converting to a deal, closing the business, you need to know your audience, and you need to be able to adjust and transition as you go through. So I feel confident calling someone 10 times, because through that process, there's a tweak and there's a value proposition when I get on the phone to talk to that individual and provide them with value. So if you're thinking of it from the perspective of helping the other individual, I don't think there's ever sort of a line where it's too much. That's my personal opinion.
I love that. I love that perspective, and I love that tenacity. Because my next question is it possible to be considered annoying? And I mean, I think annoying is in your head, and I think that's kind of like what you're conveying. And it's like, if you really want something bad enough, you will not accept the status quo for what it is. Or if you do, you're not being resourceful enough. I mean, I think that's like the big point that you're making. And I think this is something we see so often with people, is that if they get one no, or they get one point of adversity, they just think, well, the door is closed, the wall is up, it's impossible to scale, and I'm just not going to be able to do it. I guess I got to find an alternative solution, or just give up. And I think what you're describing is that no, you just got one no from one person doesn't actually mean that it's a no overall. Keep chugging, keep plugging away at it. Is that correct?
That's right. It's getting to yes, and a no is not yet, right? So keep persisting, keep pursuing to get to that yes. And you know, eventually, I think through life experience, through circumstances, intuitively, I believe in intuition, there will be points when you decide to let go. So you may be on a particular journey and then decide that isn't the right fit for you, and then you're going to switch gears, and that's fine. And to be in a position where you failure is good, right? Like it's that learning that needs to happen so that you could continue to grow. So keep going in that direction. I guess my biggest message is don't retreat, right? Like keep pushing that comfort zone. Keep pushing. That's important.
I love that. That makes a ton of sense to me. So once you get your master's degree, your PhD, or maybe a graduate degree, or maybe you're just your undergraduate degree, the next step is obviously landing a job. I would love to learn, Joanna, what was your first job? How did you get your foot in the door for that opportunity?
Well, I had several jobs growing up. Again, personal circumstances required that. My father passed when I was 11 years old. Suddenly, my mother raised 4 children. And so through that resiliency and that grit, I just had multiple jobs. But once I decided that I wanted to get into teaching, and I graduated from the Faculty of Education, I was pretty certain that I wanted to enter the public system, and just really applied. Now, I don't know whether it was luck or resiliency or a positive mindset, but it wasn't overly difficult for me because I had the outcome in my mind. And I think, you know, if you move towards a particular result that you want in your mind, it does come to fruition. And so For me, it was I want to teach high school business computer science at with the public board, and I happen to live in Toronto, and so wanted to teach with the Toronto board, and that was my mission. So as I went through the process of applying, and those around me were talking sort of the negative talk about how they weren't hiring, how the pathway to getting a teaching position was difficult, I just shut all that out, and again was sort of on a mission to get to where I needed to go. So the process was a little rigorous with the Board of Education, the individual schools, and then met with the principal of one particular school in an area of Toronto that I was privileged to teach at, simply because those students there were a lot of immigrant families, a lot of poverty in that area, and I wanted to bring that inspiration to them in terms of my skill set and my knowledge. So after leaving that interview, the principal called right away and said, "You're hired." And I don't even think he was able to do that. He had to go through the right channels of the Board of Education, but he was pretty persistent, and he said, we want you to join the team. And I had 2 or 3 interviews lined up, and I had I had gone to another particular school with maybe perhaps more affluent students in terms of that community. But he was pretty persistent in wanting to hire me, and then through that process, I said yes to him, and he was quite pleased, and it was an incredible few years in supporting those students. So that's how I did it.
That's amazing. I love what you talked about, having that story, that outcome in mind of what you wanted to accomplish. Earlier in this workshop, I talked about story, and your story is everything. Like, what is the story you tell yourself for why you will or will not be successful? And whatever it is, you will manifest that. Like, whatever your goal is, you will achieve up to that goal and no higher. So you might as well go for the highest possible goal that you've got, or the best possible outcome you can achieve from that circumstance or situation. And at least if you got that in mind, your likelihood of actually hitting it is much higher. Like, you're not going to, in this hypothetical situation, apply for a teaching job, and then all of a sudden them coming back and saying, and your goal being to be a teacher, to them come back and say, "Hey, you're actually the principal. We need you to run this whole school." It's not going to turn out like, that's a silly example, but the point I'm making is, I think I compare this a lot entrepreneurially. If your mindset is like, "Hey, like, we want to impact this many people with our company, or like earn this much revenue, or do this many things with our company," like, you will hit up to that level, but no higher. So you might as well set really high goals, because even if you don't hit them, that's okay. You're going to be probably a lot further along than had you set lower goals. True.
I agree.
So, my next question is about when you're, and I know obviously things have changed when it comes to getting your foot in the door, but I'd love to learn your thoughts on LinkedIn and just social media to really build out your professional brand. What are your thoughts on that? How can that help you, or rather, can that help you in the process of pursuing a additional education?
Yeah, well, I think so. I think in the digital world, I'm a big believer in relationships, right? And so now you have to transfer the concrete in-person relationships to what's happening online. And LinkedIn is a great tool. Through the process of using LinkedIn as a concrete example in our business, with the U.S. College Expo that we host in Canada, we generally have guest speakers, Olympians, and some prominent speakers. And my process is not to go through the normal channels of maybe going to the agent and getting that Olympian sort of onboarded as a speaker, but just reaching out to them directly. And again, it doesn't just, it's not going to come easy the first time. I may make it sound easy, but you need to persist. And so, when I'm not getting a response, if you get a no, at least you can change it to a yes. But if you're not getting a response, then how far are you going to go to get a response? And that's really up to you. And so through that LinkedIn process, I've been able to get some really great prominent speakers. This year we have Rowan Barrett from NBA Canada, RJ Barrett's father, who was speaking. And so these are opportunities for you to extend your network. And as it extends to the professional realm, like who is it in your network that you want to reach out to? You know, I'm connected to people like, you know, speaking of Shark Tank and Dragon's Den and people that I haven't met, people that I haven't talked to. So why are they connecting? And I think you said it before, Garrett, it's the energy that you're putting out into the world and how that is going to manifest. And really, it's up to you. Whatever you put in your mind comes to fruition, I believe.
I love that. That's so true, and that makes so much sense. So I guess my next question is, speaking on this topic of like expanding your network, I mean, as these students are building their mentoring relationships with their mentor, the question I have is, is it all right to ask for introductions? Is it all right to ask your mentor or somebody that you're professionally acquainted with or connected with? Is it okay to ask them for introductions, or does that potentially seem rude?
Absolutely asking for introductions. I mean, this is like, I believe we're all connected. And so why wouldn't you? That's what's crossing my mind. Like, why wouldn't you ask if you're trying to get to an individual and you know someone who can get you there? Then reach out and ask. You know, sometimes in certain circumstances, people just feel like they don't want to. Maybe in their minds, that would prove to be a bit of a failure if they didn't do it on their own. But you're not going to get anywhere on your own, right? So you need to be able to surround yourself with good people, like-minded, positive influencers who can help you get to where you want to go.
I love that advice. I see that all over the place. I mean, obviously, as an entrepreneur, I could find a lot of relations there. I see a lot of people, even friends that I know that have come to me and said things like, "Oh man, I've got this entrepreneurial idea, but I'm not going to share it with anybody because I don't want anybody to steal it." And my response is always, your idea is not that good. I can promise you, what you came up with on your own cannot be that great. I can promise you that. But what I can tell you is that if you share it with other people, one, other people don't have time to steal your idea. Your idea is not that great. They're not going to drop everything that they're doing in their life to then solely focus on the one thing that you're working on. And I can promise you that. But they probably know people, and they probably got insight and wisdom that they could share with you, that taking that knowledge and the culmination of all the knowledge you're able to collaborate and put together, you were able to actually build something amazing. That is more likely than you coming up with an idea that's the greatest thing in the world all on your own. Highly unlikely.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's really interesting. So when you mentioned that you had the outcome in your mind of what you wanted to accomplish when you were interviewing for that job, did you share that with other people? So one, did you share that in the interview itself? Did you share that with other people, like mentors in your life? How did you come up with that outcome? Like what was it? Was it just like, hey, I just want, like, my outcome is I'm going to get this job, or I'm going to be specifically teaching this 6th grade class social studies from this period? Like, was it specific or was it general?
It was really specific. I wanted to teach business studies and computers, and that was my area. Interestingly enough, the principal at the time, because oftentimes they're crafting these timetables and they have a set timetable that they need to fill, and on that timetable was something like, I don't remember, geography or something like that. So included with the business courses, you know, geography was something that needed to be taught, and this was the timetable of the person that was going to take the job. And I mean, that's fine. You need to be flexible. Is it going to be like 100%? It's not necessarily going to be 100%, but if it's mostly what you want it to be and you're flexible enough to adapt, I think that's key, and that's really important. And yes, I did share it with the people around me, and I think true of any circumstance, you're going to have the believers and you're going to have those that will tell you every reason why not, right? Oh, that's a rough area, and I heard, you know, this, that, and the other, and on it goes. And so are you able to shut that out and to be really resilient in your single-minded kind of approach of getting to that outcome? Because there will be things that get in the way. And are you able to, really crush those barriers along the way and get to where you want to be? That's important, because you're going to have people that are the naysayers for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And that makes me think, do you have a system or a process for kind of weeding out those naysayers or those people? Because ultimately, we don't want to surround ourselves with negative people. Like, we don't want to I get it. Some people are like, oh, I'm just trying to be realistic. It's like, your realistic is what is the status quo. That's the problem. Your perception of what you think is realistic for me is what's going to hold me back. But I don't want to surround myself with you. Do you constantly take an inventory of like who those people are and like try to distance yourself? Because sometimes you can't totally distance yourself from that. I know, like, family members, sometimes you can't. Like, I know when I first started Ambition in Motion, I definitely had a couple family members that were like, that's not a safe option. Like, you could get a job like that pays you a bunch of money to do this. Instead, you're running the startup where there's no guaranteed income and you don't really know what's going to happen. And like, I get it, they want the best for you, but they don't know what is best for you. I guess the point is, yeah, do you have a strategy for like kind of like respectfully pushing them out?
Yeah, I mean, listening to those people, if you're surrounding yourself with people like your family, and these people love you and care about you, they are expressing from a place of truth and from their comfort zone. So in their mind, they would never do this. In their mind, I'm taking a huge risk. In their mind, whatever is going on in their mind. And so you need to just understand that. And I really just park that. Now, it does start to, creep up for sure. But how resilient are you to be able to just push that away and to stay on your own path? That's really key. I think it's important that you have that picture in your mind and you move towards that vision and that outcome, and that's really what supports the process. And as an entrepreneur and a business owner and hiring individuals, it's like I made a ton of mistakes, and usually it comes from the reference point of who you are. So similar to the circumstance of the individual who is saying to me, well, do you really want to do that? Like, I wouldn't do that. They're coming from their own reference point. So my positive reference point can sometimes be a negative, because in my positive reference point, I would never do the things that some individuals do that reflect negatively. And so when those individuals come into my world, I give them the benefit of the doubt, and I presume that they're like me, but not everyone is. And so as an entrepreneur, as you start to determine the skill set, and perhaps there are individuals that are negative in the circumstances and are essentially holding you back, you need to find a way to remove yourself from that situation. That's a key learning. And I'm still learning that, but I'm learning to do it quicker, sooner, faster, which is great.
That's great. That's awesome, Joanna. And so I'd love to take maybe a quick pause here, ask the audience who's watching this right now, quick question. I'd love if you could post this in the comment section. Who are people that build you up? Who are those specific people that build you up, that make you, that believe and support what you're working towards, what you're doing, what you want to accomplish? Post that in the comment section. I'd love to learn who your support system is. And if you wouldn't mind even elaborating a little bit further, sharing a little bit about how they boost you up, how they build you up, how they support you, because I think that's so critical, that's so great. When we can see other people and how their support system supports them, it makes us feel, it gives us almost a paradigm, a guide for how we want to be supported, how we can be supported in our own lives, in our own careers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, Joanna, I wanted to ask you, because I know we're starting to get towards the end of this workshop here, I want to ask you a couple of final questions. And a lot of them pertain to mentorship. So when it comes to mentorship, one common theme I hear is really, how can I go about maintaining this relationship over time? Let's say if I don't have a career or a life update, are there ways that I can go about keeping my relationship with my mentor fresh, even though I, in my mind, may think I don't have any like crazy life updates?
What are your suggestions for young people that are building these mentor relationships right now in that type of circumstance?
I think it really is just understanding the other individual, like the mentor, and finding a way to connect. The connection can be a phone call. It could be a quick message via email or text. It could be meeting in person. I mean, just recently, one of my mentor relationships that stemmed from elementary school, junior kindergarten, in fact. I met with her this weekend, and I hadn't seen her in maybe 6 or 7 years, but there were touch points along the way. And so when we finally connected, it was though we were never apart. And I think that type of mentorship relationship just comes easily, and that's what you're looking for in a particular mentor.
Yeah, no, I love that. That makes sense. And so I guess maybe another question I had about like mentorship and managing those relationships is, what if my career interests changed? So I'm meeting with my mentor and I've shared like, hey, I'm working towards this outcome or this end goal. And then I learn something. I get new information. I get new wisdom. I would imagine it would be easy to feel like a phony if I didn't continue on this path, or feel like it would be a wash to continue this relationship because my path has changed and my relationship up to this time has been so invested in this one outcome that I've been working towards. Do you have any suggestions on how to communicate if your interests change professionally?
I honestly feel that authenticity and that transparency is important. And if that mentor truly wants the best for you, and I believe they do, then they're going to understand and they're going to support that next step. Well, what is that next best move for you in your career path? And they're there to support you. So there's no reason in my mind why you wouldn't share that and ask for support and ask for help to get you to that next step.
That is awesome. Well, Joanna, thank you so much for being here. This has been an amazing workshop. I think the students in our audience are really going to enjoy and are really enjoying what you had to say about getting your foot in the door for whether that be professional opportunities or academic opportunities. I think really the moral is never give up. Don't accept no as the end-all be-all result from any circumstance. You can alter your outcome, but you have to believe, you have to have conviction, you have to be willing to be resourceful. I loved your stories, Joanna. That was amazing.
Thank you. Thanks, Garrett. Thanks for having me.
So for anybody in the audience, if you've got any questions for either Joanna or myself, please post them in the comment section. We will answer them. If you post them within 24 hours of this workshop, we will try to get them as soon as they are live and launched, and we will answer them as quickly as we can. But thank you all for being here this evening. Joanna, thank you for being here. I hope you all have a great rest of your evening, and I look forward to seeing you in our next workshop.
Thank you.